A bit later as we mark this anniversary a bit more, so thank you for that. Now, the blockade has had an impact on one of Qatar's main exports, which is its airline, Qatar Airways, which has suffered substantial fall in revenue, lost nearly 20% of its passengers as well. That is because much of the airspace around Qatar is controlled by the blockading countries, and it's been off limits to the company since the blockade began. But the CEO of Qatar Airways says it can handle the losses. In response, it's boosting fleet numbers and adding extra destinations. So as promised, we're off to Hamad International Airport in Doha. Natasha Ghanaian, why don't you tell us more about how Qatar Airways has been handling this past year?
Well, there's no doubt about it, Kamal. Qatar Airways, to quote the CEO, has suffered substantial losses as a result of the year-long blockade. The airline has not released earnings or passenger numbers, but we do know that prior to the blockade, Qatar Airways was soaring. In 2016, it posted historic profits. It earned more than $541 million. It flew 20% more passengers than the year before. The blockade has halted some of that momentum.
It did impact us, that it increased our flying time. It put pressure on my operational cost, but it did not stop the will and the determination of us to keep on our path of growth.
There are 18 cities Qatar Airways can no longer fly to in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Egypt, the countries implementing this blockade. And because they have restricted their airspace, what it means as a passenger is that sometimes you will fly a greater distance. So that increases your flight time. That means employees are working longer hours. And of course, these planes are burning more fuel. Now, the cargo division has been trying to fill the void. It's been putting more cargo into passenger planes. There has been grumbling by passengers that ticket prices have increased in the last year, that the frequent flyer program has become more restrictive. To that, the CEO says that this is part of a business plan that will put Qatar Airways more in line with its competitors. Now, for the foreseeable future, the CEO is saying that it can continue to sustain these losses, but the CEO says that if this blockade continues in the long term, we will be looking at a very different scenario for the airline and, of course, for Qatar. And the CEO reminds everyone that this is a state-owned airline and it would not be beyond the realm of possibility, again, if this blockade continues, for the airline to ask for a government bailout.
Can you tell us a little bit more, Natasha, then, just expand on how the company's adapted, given that it is a company with pretty much just one business, a core business, to fly aeroplanes?
Exactly. Look, the theme, I spoke to the chief officer of the cargo division. We spoke to the CEO yesterday. The theme that Qatar Airways is definitely promoting is one of resilience. And there are many things that the airline has done in the last year in the face of this blockade, remarkably, to expand and grow. In fact, the CEO would describe its mode of, quote, defeating the blockade as implementing a strategy of expansion. So in the last year, it's added these superpower Airbuses that allow the airline to fly greater distance to more destinations. When it lost access to routes, the 18 routes I mentioned, it added 19 more, and it forged international partnerships with Cathay Pacific, Air Italy, and Jet Suite in the United States. The CEO is saying that more investments are to come. And the big bright spot, Kamal, in all of this is its cargo division. All of you remember the images from last summer of 4,000 cows being airlifted to Qatar. Well, the cargo division has unbelievably not posted any losses and has maintained its perch as one of the top 3 cargo companies in the United States. I'm sorry, in the world.
Natasha Ghanaian live at Hamad International Airport here in Doha. Thanks, Natasha. With us here in